if anybody's going to show up. I'm a couple minutes early. I'm going to go grab my coffee. Delicioso. Well, I guess I'll get started. Can't wait forever. Oh, I got the wrong screwdriver. Probably would help if I had the right screwdriver. Where is my screwdriver? Huh. Oh, there's my screwdriver. In the last place I didn't leave it. Or in the last place I did leave it. Whichever. I don't know. Hello people. Welcome to my party. Just gonna get some stuff tongue oiled up. Hey there, Meals on Wheels. How's it going? Just in time for the prostate exams. Just kidding. All right. Got some white ash Yawara. I'm gonna tongue oil right now. Again? Yeah, Tony, this is what I do every week, man. Again. Yeah, again. How many prostates do I need to examine? I don't know, man. You know, until they shut me down for not having a license, probably. You know, anytime you see a guy coming at you with gloves on, you got to be careful. Hey there, fire. All right, let me go put this in the drying room. Be right back. Woot woot. All right. Your prostate's tired, boss. My prostate is tired, boss. That's funny. Oh my god. So yeah, these are white ash Yawara. These are new. I got a bunch of white ash recently. Ash is kind of hard to come by these days because there's a beetle that's really messed up the ash forest here in the U.S. But one of my vendors, they had some white ash trees that got down in a storm, so he came across them. So making stuff out of white ash, which is good times. Who we got here? Abdius. Hey, Abdius, how's it going? Raspberry, these are Yawara. If you come back tomorrow morning, I finish these up. These are used in Japanese and some Filipino martial arts. You put a cord in these holes here, and it anchors it to your hand, and it's used as like an augmentation of your fist. All right, 2 more of these. Woot, woot. All right. I got 2 more of the white ash ones. Got to pour some more tung oil in here. All right. Make sure, you always want to make sure you get the tips completely saturated. That's what she said, right? Because that penetrating oil from the tung oil really needs to make sure it gets into the striking end. Do I have kids? Yes, I do have kids. Am I interested in martial arts? Yes, I am. I've studied, not so much these days because I have a lot of injuries, but when I was young, I studied all sorts of martial arts. I have a 3rd degree black belt in Shotokan. I have a 1st degree black belt in Judo. I've studied Gatka, Jiu-Jitsu, Kenjutsu, did HEMA and Buhurt and Armored Combat for a while. I've done just about every combat sport you can think of at some point in my life. All right, let me put this away. Be right back. If this is your first time coming to one of my Staining Saturday lives, get used to me disappearing back and forth because my dry room is on the other side of this curtain back here, so I have to take the stuff in there and set it to dry. Yeah, when I was young, it was kind of a funny story. When I was a kid, I was like 5 years old. We had a rec center. I lived in Oklahoma, and they had all these different classes you could take. And I wanted to take breakdancing because it was 1983, and breakdancing was a big thing. However, my father was not a big fan of the idea of me taking any sort of dance classes, so he put me in a karate class, even though I really wasn't interested in it yet. And that was all she wrote. Be right back. And the kind of ridiculous thing, you know, it was American karate, you know, so I had like a junior black belt by the time I was 6, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. But I went back and retested as an adult, you know, because I felt like, yeah, I feel like getting a black belt when you're 6 years old is kind of dumb. The guy that was running the dojo, I did really well in tournaments, and he wanted to get some black belt trophies in the dojo. So, you know, no one knows it was a 5 and 6 year old that was winning the trophies. So this right here is also these are some steaks that I'm making. I had some cutoffs, and sometimes when I have a weirdly shaped cutoff, I try to see if I can make a cool steak. So I made like a wood dagger slash shiv slash vampire hunter steak. And I'm gonna cord wrap the handle on this and the other one tomorrow. Oh. This is another one that I did from a cutoff. It's got kind of a belly on it. Yeah, they are shiny. I sand most of my stuff. I sand to at least 1,000 grit. I think these steaks I sanded to 800 grit. Most of the stuff, though, yeah, most of the stuff that in my shop gets sanded to at least 1,000 grit because I like stuff to be shiny and smooth and clean looking. So, all right, so this one ready for drying. All right. Now, I got the big boy over here I got to do. I sold a broadsword waster this week, so I had to make another broadsword waster. And a waster is just basically the European way of saying a bowkin, by the way, if you don't know what a waster is. Basically the same thing, but used by knights in Europe. This is a broadsword waster. And make sure I completely soak the tip. Please know that's what she said jokes. And but I supply practice weapons to people in SCA, HEMA, Buhurt, because the competition weapons for those groups are expensive, and if you break it, you gotta replace it. So it's a lot cheaper to practice with my wasters and just destroy them and save your competition weapon for competitions. This one's all done. You go put this in the drying room, and then we got some exotic wood Uwara to do. All right, almost done. These are Padauk. Got a couple Padauk Uara and a couple of Purple Heart Uara. Tung oil these bad boys up. And then we're gonna switch over to the stain. I got a couple of stabs to stain today and a couple of steaks. But if you got any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. So Padauk's kind of a fun wood, by the way. It starts out kind of an orange color, and over time it turns like a darker, kind of brownish purple. So it's kind of fun when you buy one that's kind of the brighter orange, because over the years, the longer you own it, the darker it gets. It's kind of fun. Woot woot. All right, so that one goes over here. Another Padauk. And I think I might have put a little too much tung oil in this thing. That's all right. All right, so that one's done. Get the Purple Heart. This Purple Heart, honestly, I may have to put it out in the sun for a little bit. Purple Heart, sometimes it loses its color when you're working it. It turns kind of a grayer purple. So the nice thing is you can put it in the sun for a couple hours and it gets its color back. All right, one more Uara. If you're interested in any of this stuff, just so you do know, I do have a shop, warriorwoodandprops.com. I'm also on eBay. Everything you see here is available on eBay. Some stuff, like if I have things that are not up to snuff with my quality standards, sometimes I will auction them on eBay. So you can find some of my stuff for pretty cheap over there. I usually just do a no reserve for like a penny or 99 cents or something like that. So if you're interested in getting a good product that maybe just has a minor flaw in it, I got a lot of stuff over there. All right, my childrens, that's it for the tung oil. Now I gotta wipe this out. And we're gonna switch over to the stain, and oh my goodness gracious, I used way too much tung oil. Did not mean to use that much tung oil. Unfortunately, you can't really reuse tung oil once it's out of the can. It's pretty much done because it starts to oxidize as soon as it hits the air, which is kind of a pain in the butt because you can't really reuse it. I feel like I waste a lot of it sometimes, but what are you gonna do? Who we got here? I'm sorry, I am old and have bifocals. Mejores, how's it going? Sorry if I mispronounced that. All right. I think that should be enough tung oil out of there. All right. All right. So that's it for the tung oil. Now we got some stuff I gotta stain. I got my stain here. Oops, sorry about that. And today we're staining a poplar steak. This one's going to get auctioned on eBay for like a penny because most of my poplar steaks are 12 inches. For some reason, I don't know, I think the blank that I was using wasn't the proper length. I think somebody shortchanged me by about an inch because all the other ones from that blank were 12 inches. This one ended up like 11 inches. So it's a little short, but still cool. And I'm making a cross steak out of these pieces here. That's going to get stained, and then tomorrow I will staple and glue it all together and wrap up the handle tomorrow morning on the Sunday Live. And we got a Monkey King cudgel here that's going to get stained. Tomorrow it'll get the studs and the wrap. And I've got a child size Donatello staff that I make in the shop. There's just a smaller version of the Donatello staffs that I do for kids for Halloween, because that season sneaks up on me every freaking year. Hey there, Angela. So yeah, every year this spooky season, I'm like, I'm gonna prepare this year. I'm gonna beef up my inventory, and it seems like every year it still ends up sneaking up on me. All right, if I can get these gloves on. My hands got a little sweaty while I was doing the tung oil. Anytime your hands get wet, these gloves become harder to put on. But don't worry. As I said earlier, we're not doing any prostate exams. Everyone's safe. Thanks for hanging out with me, people. All right. Let's do these stains. I think everything's getting a dark stain today. The Jacobian. I'm honestly not sure how to pronounce that. Jacobine. I don't know. All right. Stir it up. I really do appreciate those of you who are hanging out with me, because I know this is probably not the most interesting thing in the world to watch. A chubby middle-aged man staining a bunch of stuff, but it does help me feel less bored, so I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me while I do this. And if you're interested, tomorrow morning, every Sunday, I do my finishing work live, where I cord everything up and wrap handles and do all that stuff, so you can see the finished products before everybody else, before I do my finished works videos. So you're welcome to come hang out in the morning. I usually go live around like 7:30, something like that. So 7:30 in the morning Eastern time. So if you're interested in that, you're more than welcome to come hang out then. I know that is an ungodly early time for most people on a Sunday, but I work too many jobs, so I get up early every morning because I don't have a choice. Because between my day job and writing books for Penguin Random House and trying to keep this shop going, I don't have a whole lot of free time. Yes, most of the woods I use do come from U.S. vendors. However, I do, and this is a problem I've run into, like my exotic woods and stuff like that. A lot of that does come from overseas. And unfortunately right now, with the tariff situation, like, I don't know. I'm hoping it doesn't affect prices too much, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. Hang on. Sorry, I dropped something. There we go. All right. So we'll start off with these. This is just going to be a very simple cross steak. So I'll stain the pieces today. And then tomorrow, everything will get glued and stapled together. I use wood glue and staples for my cross steaks because I like to make sure everything's going to stay in place. So I used to just use glue, but I don't know, I just don't trust it. So I like to make sure that anything I make does not fall apart. So I feel like, why not double up? So that will be the centerpiece for the cross steak. And you go put that in the drying room real quick. And then these here are the cross pieces. So yeah, these are fun. I just think like I had probably about it's probably about 2 years ago. I had somebody when I had an Etsy shop. They had gone to like an auction and they had a 19th century vampire hunter kit that was being sold, and it was like $5,000, and they're like, I would rather not spend that. So they sent me a bunch of pictures and asked me if I could make replicas, and that was when I first started making the cross stakes, because those were very common. Different designs of cross stakes were pretty common in those old vampire hunter kits. Which I do find hilarious, by the way, that like in the 19th century, they were so freaked out about vampires that like a lot of Europeans traveling through Eastern Europe, like from like England, Germany, places like that, they would buy a vampire hunter kit if they had to travel through Eastern Europe, just in case, you know. Usually came with like a cross, a few stakes. Sometimes it would come with like a pistol, with like a silver bullet, garlic, holy water, you know, all that jazz. All right. Those are the cross pieces. Done. All right, there we go. Sorry, be right there. I'm just dropping things over here. There we go. All right. Whew. Now we're going to do the poplar steak. I realized recently I've been saying poplar my whole life, and I came to find out that that's not how that word's pronounced. I learned to read at a very early age, and because of that, there were a lot of words that I read before I heard them, and so I mispronounce a lot of words because I saw those words written down before I ever heard them spoken. And poplar was one of those. I've come to realize it's supposed to be pronounced poplar, not poplar, and so working on that. All right. And there's our poplar steak. All nice and dark and pretty. That'll go on auction probably Sunday, tomorrow, once I'm done for the day. All right, let me get a new rag here. 'Cause now I gotta do the big boys. So these are fun. These are my Monkey King cudgels. I do one in bronze and brown, and I have another one that's in brass and gold that I do. It's funny though, like I started selling these a few years ago, and yeah, I would sell probably like, you know, a few of them a year. And then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, I started selling a ton of these, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I found out there was a game called Wukong that was very popular, that was based on the Monkey King. And so people were buying my Monkey King cudgels left and right. I had to start making a lot more of them. The sales for these have started to slow down, which I am both happy and sad about. Like sad because, you know, I hate losing the sales, but at the same time, these are not easy to make. So, and there was a period there when I couldn't keep them in stock. Because they were just, by the time I made them, I was literally making like 4 of them a week because I was selling out of them as fast as I could make them. All right, there we go. That one's done. We got one more, and then I'm calling it a day, fam. Because I'm gonna go home. We're gonna go see Sinners tonight, which I've heard is pretty freaking awesome. Anybody here seen it? I've heard it's pretty awesome. There's a little more. All right. There we go. Now these here, these are the child size Donatello staffs that I make. They're mostly for kids to use on Halloween or for dress up, you know, if they're doing Donatello Ninja Turtle cosplay or just ninja cosplay in general. They're about the same size as a Joe staff. They're 48 inches long. It's stained. It has a nice little center wrap so that it looks good. But they're not exactly like combat ready weapons. These kids ones, which they shouldn't be. They're not really meant for that. They're just meant for fun, costume, and dress up. All right, that one is done. Holy crap, is that everything? I guess so. Man, I felt like I had more than this. All right, and go put this bad boy in the drying room. All right. Yes. Here we go. Hammer this bad boy down. All right. I think that's it. Let me clean up a bit here. Yeah. Yeah, it's very shiny. Oh, let's see. Oh, those are old. Anyway, let me put this stuff away. All right. Anyway, if you are up in the morning and interested, as I said earlier, I will be going live at about 7:30 in the morning, somewhere around there. I don't know. I don't really have a set time. When I go live, I just kind of do it whenever I'm ready. But I usually go live on Saturdays for staining around noon or a little after that. And then Sunday mornings, I don't know, somewhere right between like 7 and 7:30, I go live and do all my finishing work. So if you're awake at 7:30 tomorrow morning and you feel like hanging out with me, please come and hang out. But I think that's going to be it for me, people. Thank you for hanging out with me, chat. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.